Welcome to Construction Genius. My guest today is Kevin Dobson, founder and executive director of Capital College and Career Academy, a charter high school that is slated to launch in 2022-23 with the incoming freshman class. And their mission is preparing tomorrow's workforce today by empowering young people to be critical thinkers who are truly college and career ready by engaging in a one-of-a-kind career technical education. We have a terrific discussion. We begin by talking about why the education system is broken, how our society is shifting from the blue-collar, white-collar divide to a more blended blue and white-collar track in terms of the career opportunities that are available, and what construction companies can do to build a pipeline of qualified leaders coming into the construction industry and qualified workers. I think really what you want to pick up on in this interview is Kevin's passion as an educator for impacting the construction industry and impacting our community. And we, as people who are committed to the construction industry, we obviously share that passion, and we need to direct it to sowing seeds within our educational environment that we can reap down the road, and really helping people to have that mindset shift that the construction industry is something that people need to get into because it's such a terrific industry. So really get some great pointers and some great inspiration from Kevin in our interview, and make sure that you are committed as a construction leader to the development of the next generation of workers in whatever way that you can. Thanks for listening to Construction Genius here today. Enjoy my interview with Kevin. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Kevin, welcome to Construction Genius.
How are you?
I'm doing well. You know, I have a question. Why is our educational system broken in terms of being able to produce people who are qualified to work in construction trades?
I think it goes even well beyond the construction trades, specifically to California. Right now, we have an education system that continuously emphasizes college and a 4-year degree. But the reality of it is that 30% of California ninth graders are actually going to graduate from college. Another 30% of students that attend a community college are going to actually get a degree within a 6-year time period. That's just an associate's degree. So what happens to this large number of students that are not getting these degrees? How are we serving our community? How are we helping students find a passion? And for far too long, I feel like within education, students have been forced to choose between college or a career. And frequently, if it is a career, it is seen as something that's lower or beyond where a student should be going. And what I always, as I've gone out and done presentations and talked about this very topic, what I've laughed at is that I've got 3 college degrees, and kids and people in the construction trades that have a job can make more money than I'm making with an associate's degree or less.
See, now this is fundamental right here. So this mindset that people have that if my kid doesn't go to college, then I've been a failure as a parent. And we send them off to these colleges. They graduate with a degree in basket weaving, and then they wonder why they can't get a job, and they have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. We know in the construction industry that there's such a tremendous opportunity across a wide spectrum of trades, but also of jobs within the trades, from the most technical to the most creative to sales to everything. So what is your vision for helping to move the needle and to really begin to build that pipeline of talent for construction companies?
I was fortunate because my family background was in the trades. My mom represented small construction companies and really worked to build connections with them. My stepdad was a general contractor. And so I saw really the power of it. And although I didn't choose that as a route with my life, and I'm in education, I started to get pretty frustrated and pissed off a little bit, to be frank, because I'm seeing really creative, talented kids that are getting to graduation that have no tangible skills other than maybe what we required of them for a senior project. And so I see kids that would go to a community college and they're spinning tires, taking years to figure out where's their passion or interest. kids that would graduate and maybe their family, they didn't have the steps in place. They didn't know how to get to a college, whether it was a 2 year or a 4 year. And what they ended up doing is, again, maybe working just straight into a low end job, $8 an hour, minimum wage, whatever it may be.
Yep.
And it was really, really frustrating on my end. And so I never thought I'd kind of be in a position where I'd want to start a school. But I think that schools should represent the needs of the community. In Sacramento, there's a huge shortage for labor.
Yep.
And so our goal has been to kind of address that.
So the Capital College and Career Academy is your answer in terms of how to fix the broken educational system.
Yeah, I think for too long, kids have had to choose between, do we want to go into a trade, a career, or do I want to go to a college route? And as you look at educational research, it shows that when kids are given tangible life skills, when they're allowed to explore and find things that they're interested and passionate about, one, they're going to perform better in school. And two, they're going to come out more prepared, ready to move into an industry, a career, whatever it may be. And the other thing that we've seen is that jobs have changed as technology has advanced. It used to just be blue and white collar jobs. And that model that we've had in schools kind of was built to address that. But we're seeing with technology and innovation that industry has changed. It is now more of blue and white collar. It's a mix of the two.
And see, construction is a perfect example of that, how there's that combination of blue and white collar. And it's interesting because I think that we as human beings most people are wired to be that combination of both the physical and the mental. And that's one of the wonderful things about construction is that you can combine those two things so readily in the industry. How have you approached the structure of Capital College Career Academy? How have you approached that? What is your philosophy? What is your outlook there?
I think you just kind of touched on something that's really critical for us. And it kind of clicked and made sense. And it was like, why aren't more people doing this? Research, again, just looking at the education side of things, 93% of students that are enrolled in a career technical education, it doesn't even have to be with construction, are going to go on to enroll in college, enlist in the military, or have a job within 6 months. And so it just made sense that if you're working with your hands, then why aren't we giving kids some tangible industry recognized credentials? I think of it really as students come into our program as a freshman, the goal is that they're building a resume from day one. And what can we do to really fill that resume? So even if you decide, hey, this school isn't for me, but I leave, I'm still going to leave with something tangible. And you're building on it every single day, every week while you're there. And ultimately working to a graduation where then you have a plethora of options available to students.
Give me an idea of that, building that resume. How are they going to build their resume from the very beginning? What's the approach there?
Just looking at what's required by the state of California and just the normal scope of sequence of courses. But then we can supplement that with things that is going to be recognized beyond the walls of a school. So for example, within a health class, I can get a kid CPR certified. I can get them their OSHA certification. Within an art class, we can look at like a power tool certification, just getting kids to work with their hands when they're building something and then having these tangible endpoints. So when I was in a classroom teacher, I always tried to embody this. And what we found is that when you make something meaningful, when I'm not just writing a paper to turn it in, then it's done. If I can make it meaningful, kids are going to be more invested. They're going to do better work. And they're going to see the point of school. And so, for example, really tapping into the community. One project I did in my class, we're learning about 7th grade ancient civilizations. I got to teach these preteens, 12, 13-year-olds why to care about something that happened 200-300 years ago. So what we did is we reached out to our building planning department here in Sacramento. They were looking at building monuments down at our riverfront. And kids actually did this whole research of what did buildings and monuments say about ancient civilizations, and then how could they create one within their community? And then we actually went in front of the planning committee for the city, and the students did a co-presentation with the developer who's developing our waterfront, and were able to show what they had built and their ideas for the waterfront. And it's amazing because like that one little seed, and we got, it's a little notoriety, but one of the quotes that stood out to me from one of the kids was like, I never thought about architecture or engineering, but this is really cool. And it was really creative. And I think the more of those opportunities we can plant seeds for kids, the more lives that we can change in education and really move that needle that you were talking about earlier.
I think it's interesting here, looking at your vision statement for the Academy, you say here, students will be a beacon of hope for their communities as they transition into adulthood. That's pretty powerful there, this idea of a beacon of hope. Why do you have that conviction that the school can actually help with that?
2 reasons. So First and foremost, monetary. We've developed three clear pathways for students: a general construction one, architecture, engineering, and then a fourth one that we've been exploring is like a green energy certificate.
Interesting.
All of those careers are notably higher than the salary is notable higher than the median income of the areas where we're looking to locate the school. And then the other piece, and this is something that I just, again, as I started on this journey, went out to a local school district. They have a program for at-risk youth. It's an auto body tech. These are kids that have come back into the school system after being incarcerated or in foster care. And I'm getting chills right now because it was amazing. I started the tour at 3:00. So school day just ended, wrapped up around 5, and we have kids that are there that just didn't want to go home. They're like, I want to get this sanded and painted because tomorrow I'm going to organize these nuts and bolts. Another thing that stood out, they were also remodeling the building. And these kids talked to, some drywall guys and electricians that came in. And they're like, man, they're making a lot of money, And there's this ownership that kids feel when they can do something. We know that research shows that, building things, doing things, working with your hands is going to help you overcome trauma.
Yes.
And it just gave me so much hope of what the trades can do and what hands-on learning can do for kids.
Yeah, it's interesting. You just reminded me, one of my favorite historical characters is Winston Churchill, and he was a bricklayer. He took that up later in life, and when he would get into the funk with his political career, he'd go out to his house and lay a bunch of bricks, and that really helped him to overcome a bunch of the challenges that he had.
I feel like that's kind of gotten me through life. I've got a huge garden and stuff in my house, and I've done a huge remodel, and it's always the hands-on stuff. I mean, it is something cathartic in it.
It's interesting though, because as I look at your proposed track here, during the sophomore year and the junior year, you've got this. In the junior year, folks are going to be married to a company for 3 years.
Yes, so our model is that students come in the freshman, the first semester is really focused in on safety. We don't want to put kids anywhere out on a job site until we've really hammered out the safety. And like I said, the OSHA certification, CPR, really focusing in on our CTE classes, laying a real strong foundation. And then before they get to that company, what we envision is a job fair. And so we've started with businesses first, with industry first, before we've created the school, which is kind of different than a lot of people in education approach things.
Why did you start with business first?
Because the school should represent the needs of the community. And there's a clear need in the construction area. We have a huge shortage of labor. And again, it's a career, which a lot of people just don't understand.
Right.
That second part of freshman year, we want kids out because, again, we want to figure out what's going to work for them.
Right.
And what do I like? Do I want to be on a huge union site where I come in, I just do my thing, there's a lot of structure? Or do I want to be with a small independent contractor where something hits the fan and I've got to really be the problem solver? I think we can all agree, anybody that has kids and thinking back to our own childhood, we didn't know what we wanted when we were 13, 14-year-old. And so you got to get out and you explore it. And so they'll go through 3 tracks of this just job shadowing. So the second semester of freshman year, then twice in their sophomore year. And the goal is that really students identify one, maybe a company or at least a work environment that they're really interested or a trade that they're really interested in. And then we dive into, all right, now I have a formal partnership with a construction company for their junior, senior, and potentially that +1 year, where now I'm working on the tangible certificates that I can take with me. It's a little more honed in and a little more focused than just the kind of the exploration they do there in their first 2 years on campus.
So what's interesting to me here is that I think part of this mindset shift is in our culture, we do not treat young adults as young adults. We treat them as teenagers, and we allow them to perpetuate their adolescence into their 20s. And it's fundamentally doing them a disservice. And I think part of the mindset shift that has to occur is that, 13, 14-year-old, I'm going to treat you like an adult. I'm going to treat you like you have a brain. And I'm going to begin to put on you the responsibilities of figuring out what you're going to be doing as an adult so that you can make the contribution to the society and, build healthy families and healthy communities that you should be doing as someone who's a functioning adult.
Yeah. And I think, on the school side, right, it's not to say like, here is the one way to do this. My frustration a lot in education is like, well, you got to go down this one path and God forbid we go a different route. And so our job is really just to give them the experiences, allow them to reflect on the experiences, to provide the connections, and then have the kids, again, as we're shifting through adolescence into adulthood, have them really take ownership of what do you want to do? What are you interested in? And one of the things that we feel really, really strongly about is that a kid that goes through this program, even if they decide, I want to go to a 4-year route, school. I want to go to a prestigious college. There's nothing wrong with that. And I would argue that a kid that's gone through our program, that's been on job sites, that's done really project-based learning is going to be a more desirable candidate to those four-year universities, especially when we throw in the opportunities that we're trying to put in to get community college classes. And so, great, you go and you want to go become a lawyer, but now you still have some tangible life skills. You know how to swing a hammer. You know how to, fix just things around your house.
Let's say you have someone who comes in and they end up thinking, I want to go to a four-year college, and maybe I do want to do construction management or architecture or engineering. Will the academy prepare someone for that kind of route?
Yeah, so again, our goal is really to mesh the rigorous college prep curriculum with industry recognized credentials. And so we are college accelerated. And what I mean by that is that even if a kid comes back for a +1 year, you still got an associate's degree that are all transferable credits in 5 years versus a kid that would have to go, even if you go directly into a four-year university, out of your normal high school, there's still 2 years there that you're still getting through those introductory level courses. And we've also developed it where a kid actually, with taking some summer college classes, could get an associate's degree by the time they graduate high school.
Yep.
And that maybe sounds like crazy, like just impossible,
No.
But we've seen models like this throughout the country. It's been happening now. Early college high schools have been around for about 30 years in the state of California. It's been done. We see the track record of what can happen when you put that level of expectations on kids and really holding them accountable.
See, now this is the thing, putting that level of expectations on kids and holding them accountable, because it seems like I think there's an opportunity with the generational shifts that are happening, particularly with, we've been nailed since 2000. We've been doing good economically for a while until the COVID hit. But then before that, we had the Great Recession, and kids who are coming up now, they're kind of thinking, man, this world that I live in, there ain't no guarantees of me having this, American dream kind of lifestyle. And that's what the construction industry is so capable of providing people is jobs that can be extremely well compensated, even if you never own your own business. And it gives people a fundamental foundation to be able to make a contribution in the economy and also in the society. And so it's so important to be able to drive this through.
I mentioned this earlier, but it frustrates the hell out of me that people can't see this. It's all levels of people, from parents to students. And I think, honestly, it comes down to exposure. People can see the value in the trades. And I know this is something that so many companies have worked so hard on to get that out and to market what the trades can do for someone. But if we can catch kids earlier, I think we can make a huge, huge difference. And one of the things for us is we can start tapping into students as early as middle school to get them excited about hands-on learning. Whereas a lot of time, construction companies are catching them already after high school or after college. And again, this may not surprise you, but I went out to various apprenticeship programs. I've talked to so many construction companies in the region. And the stories that I've heard, it's just, well, we've got this 35, 40-year-old person. They come in, they want to be a commercial electrician, but, they're scared of heights.
Right.
I got to go up on that? Yeah. Or what is this? What's a Phillips head screwdriver? How do I swing a hammer? These are just fundamental skills.
Yep.
That are lacking.
I hear of this from guys all the time is that, you get this project engineer comes out of college and, they got their 4-year degree and they think they know what's up. They go on the job site. They have no clue. But if you take that same project engineer who does have a degree, but they've been through a program like yours where they do have hands-on experience, they've been on a job site as a 16-year-old doing scrub type tasks so that they understand that they're not all that. And that can really give them an understanding of how a job site works, how to interact with superintendents and foremen and crews, and how to be much more effective as a project engineer as you come out of college.
So 2 things on that point. One, my partner in this, he built homes all throughout California. He had an architect that just over-designed the heck out of it. Talking steel all over the place, steel beams. The kid had just graduated, had never been on a job site. And so one of the pathways we're trying to establish is a pipeline into Sacramento State's construction management program. And what's really been interesting to them is their frustration sometimes is they get really just incredibly smart kids right out of high school.
Yep.
But without that job experience, they kind of get lost compared to these guys and gals that are coming in after. It's kind of like, all right, I've been on a site, I've been in construction, and now I'm coming back into construction management. And even though maybe they didn't have as the academic skills as these younger kids, they're able to really flourish in the program because they have that real world focus. And I think to circle back on our point, I mean, this is really our proposition, I think, and what we can offer to construction companies is that we can provide a strong foundation for people to come in. We know that retention is a huge issue. People come into trades think, oh yeah, I'm going to make money. This is going to be easy. And then you're retraining, you're wasting time. And as companies, you're spinning your tires on that. And just I pulled some statistics as we've done some of our presentations on apprenticeships. Although we're not a certified apprenticeship, I think that kind of speaks to what we're looking to do. For every dollar invested in apprenticeship training, employers saw an average benefit of $1.47. And so there's a big ROI on programs and supporting things of this nature.
We've talked about the main obstacles, some of the obstacles being the fundamental mindset that people have that in the educational sphere and this thing that, you got to go to four-year colleges and all that kind of stuff. If I'm a construction company CEO, I know many of my listeners are in the greater Sacramento area, so they're hearing about something that could directly impact. But, I also have listeners worldwide. If I'm a construction CEO, what do I need to do to kind of seed the mindset shift? What can I do other than, kind of twiddle my thumbs and say, man, this sucks?
I think there's a couple things. One, to speak frankly, I think in education, there is still a great deal of ignorance about apprenticeships and about real world training. I think first and foremost is really having conversations with the decision makers, whether that's on a state level or a county office of ed, for example. We have some board members who are pretty connected with the county office of ed here in Sacramento. And the reason that I say is to really start at that level and talk about what is already in place. I think the construction industry is so much further along in terms of job training than other fields that really, I mean, there's an opportunity here for construction really to take the lead on job training, getting kids a clear pipeline, and really, I think, pointing out the examples where this has already happened. Because it's not like you're reinventing the wheel. You just got to help open people's eyes to see where this has been done before, and really the benefit.
So would you recommend that a company dedicate a person or charge one person in the organization with that kind of outreach and that kind of concerted effort? How would you approach that, do you think?
I think the companies would need to ask themselves, one, in terms of just what is maybe the turnover for new employees. Are you seeing that you're getting a lot of employees that are coming in and then leaving, or that you're spending a lot of time and energy trying to train them? And if you can create some formalized partnership, it can be obviously great for the bottom line, but you're going to get a better product overall in terms of your employees. And I think a big thing that we're talking about today is really building leaders within companies as well. A good example of this was Sunt down in Arizona. They realized that we were having a lot of challenges training and recruiting our workforce. And so they started with this formalized training program within their company, and then started to reach out to the community college, which then turned into the partnership with the local high school district. And they've created this just stellar pipeline down there in northern Arizona. So
Sunt is a GC that generally does a lot of self-performing.
Yep.
The companies that can be driving this are the larger subs and then also the self-performing GCs. That's really the folks who perhaps need to step up and do a lot of concerted effort here, huh?
And I'll say just on our end, and maybe another place to look is really starting with the larger construction organizations in the area. I know we're pretty plugged in with AGC and SRBX. We've talked to ABC NorCal. We've talked to the apprenticeship programs. And again, I think that, they're your advocacy groups. And so really maybe it's also tapping into them to make these connections. And a lot of them already have them in place. They just need that additional support of how can we formalize some of the things that we have.
In terms of the academy, the Capital College and Career Academy, when are you actually going to be launching this academy?
So we're currently in our fundraising and community outreach phase right now. We're looking to submit our charter petition. We have a very unique program, and for that, we're a free public charter school is what we're setting out to do.
Right.
And so we have to submit a petition, a formalized document that's the ins and outs, everything from recruiting students to what is your educational model, who are your partnerships. So that will be launching anywhere from January until August is when we'll submit that formally.
August of 2020. So you're saying January to August 2021?
Correct.
Okay.
And then there's, depending on the authorizer for us, we're looking at the county office of ed. We're looking at about a 6 to 12 month approval process.
Right.
And so because of that, we're planning on opening the doors for the school year, 22-23 school year.
22-23. And how large will the classes be?
So we're going to start small. We really want to build a culture, a strong culture, really hit those target numbers that we're looking for in terms of graduation rates. And attendance and getting kids placed in job sites. And so starting small, freshman class of about 55 students, potentially up to 70. And then really the goal is to add about 10 or 15 students to each incoming grade level. The max size that we're looking at is about 100 students per grade level. So about 400 if we're talking about the plus 1 year, then potentially up to 500 students in the program at max capacity.
Okay, excellent. So if you're in the greater Sacramento area, you're in construction, how can someone get in touch with you, Kevin? How can they interact with you?
Yeah, so we have a website that outlines our program. It is CAP, so CAPCCA.org, so CAPCCA.org. We're also on social media. We have a LinkedIn. You can look up Capital College and Career Academy. We're on Facebook. And you can also just email me directly. My information, as well as our board of directors information, is found on our website.
Excellent. So I'm going to link to all of those things in the show notes. And so as we're wrapping up here, what would you task if you're sitting down with a construction CEO and you're obviously advocating for the academy? What would you want them to take away, 2 or 3 things they can do in the next 6 to 12 months to really drive forward this building of a pipeline of qualified workers in the construction industry?
Unfortunately, it does cost money to open a school. So just our initial startup fees in terms of legal fees, petition review, our board insurance, all of these things, we're looking at, about a $20,000 to $30,000 fundraising target. We're going to launch a challenge grant where some of our supporters will match what's donated up to a certain amount of money. And then really we're looking for a formal partnership for somebody who is looking to train a workforce very similar to what we saw with Sunt in Northern Arizona.
Right.
And really, I think tapping into their network to really kind of bring some cohesion around the construction industry here in Sacramento to, again, impact student lives, to fill your pipeline, and really to get a trained workforce that will continue to grow and really address the needs of the industry in the area.
Sunt is obviously a large, they're top, 15 ENR and all that kind of stuff. So they're $1 billion. I know here in the Sacramento area, we have some large contractors, but they're not $1 billion. And so perhaps what needs to happen is you need to get like a GC and maybe some of the larger subs to actually come together and partner up as well, which is an interesting nut to crack, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've laid some of that groundwork. If you look at our board members, we have a really diverse board. So Turner is represented on there. We have the Builders Exchange, the CEO of the Girl Scouts in Northern California, Sebastian, is represented on there. And so we've already, I think, started that process. Absolutely. I think that is kind of our next steps.
That's excellent. So Kevin, how do you keep your enthusiasm in the midst of all the challenges? Because I mean, just the fundraising challenges alone, mindset challenges, and then you've got the COVID challenges. What do you do to keep it all together and keep pushing forward here?
I think honestly, it goes back to how I got into teaching. And to be frank, it's conversations like this. So if you don't mind, I'll digress really quickly. I got into teaching because I just liked history. I was passionate about that. I played college football. And I didn't really know, what are you going to do with a history degree? So I was either going to end up being, a lawyer or a teacher. Got an opportunity. I was doing some research in Springfield, Massachusetts on the abolitionist movement. Got a chance to go in this inner city high school, did some observations. And the teacher goes, hey, do you want to, share some of your research? So I pull up a map of downtown. I'm like, hey, this is the local Black community. This is where Frederick Douglass came and spoke. His Bible's still there. And this kid who had just came out of a reform school was the last one in the class, slept every day. All of a sudden, he's on the edge of his seat, hands up. Oh, my grandma works the door. That's right down the street from my house. And just seeing that impact. I mean, every time I tell that story, I still get chills. And I said, man, this is the greatest job in the world. Every day you get a chance to impact young people. And I think that, again, I truly feel that schools should represent the community in which they serve. And to be frank, I mean, we need something like this in this area. We need a change, a fundamental shift in education throughout the country overall. And I think that we can make a difference.
I have a strong conviction that construction is one of those fundamental industries that can have that kind of positive impact on such a wide variety of people. And so it's neat that your passion for education is being married with an industry like construction, which is so important to our economy and also so potentially transformative for the people who are involved in it.
I hope you don't mind. I want to share one more story.
Give me some stories, dude. I love them.
I was at the Builders Exchange, and They were able to expose a young person to like an elevator apprenticeship program. The family was basically homeless, just had really no options. And this kid got into this training, into this apprenticeship, ended up getting a job, brought home his first check, and the dad thought something was wrong. It's like, what are you doing? How did you get this much money? The kid ends up buying the family a house. The dad gets into the apprenticeship as well. And I mean, it changed an entire family, again, just working with their hands and bringing home a real living wage.
That's terrific. That's terrific. Well, as we sign off here, Kevin, I like to ask my guests this question. What is your favorite restaurant?
I want to say Gino's Cheesesteaks, and it's kind of going back to my roots on the East Coast, Philly cheesesteaks. But my wife is Laotian. There are some small local Laotian places that we love to go to. I'm just hooked on the spicy, really diverse food that's available from Southeast Asia.
So what is your favorite Laotian joint in Sacramento?
There is a couple places right up here in Del Paso Heights. So I'm not too far from that. One of my favorites, so it used to be Asian Cafe right there on Norwood Avenue. So Asian Cafe was a good choice. There's another really good one in West Sacramento as well, if you're ever out there off of Weber Street. I'm drawing a blank on the name right now. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Kevin, I really appreciate your time here today. I appreciate your passion for the industry. I do want to encourage people to go out to the website, check out what Capital College and Career Academy is all about. We will have all of the links in the show notes. You know what? It's a big rock to push, but we've all got to keep pushing it together. I think that if we continue to give this energy and this effort towards bringing people into the construction industry, the harvest that we reap with all these seeds that we've sown in the next 15, 20 years is going to be tremendous. Kevin, really, really appreciate your work and your energy towards this effort.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity, and to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.